So we discussed several videos back about the nature of divinity and God and the omniverse being that of a body with planets orbiting a star resembling an atom, the beings on the planets resembling quarks and gluons, the galaxies resembling mitochondria, and the universes resembling cells with the nucleus of the cell being a black hole or a white hole, which extracts information from other cells in order to replicate. We discussed how there's an inconceivably large number of universes, um, being countless but not eternal, because they're always replicating, giving birth, and dying. So the analogy is that as above, so below. As you see things replicating and reproducing here, so too does the cosmos. And because of that, we have every conceivable variable at play and playing itself out within the greater omniverse. So that means every single form of sentience and non sentience that you can imagine, depending on what you define as sentience. Um, to me, everything is sentient because it originates from what I see God as like a singularity. It's an infinite point of everything and nothing comprehensible for all eternity. And it's neither infinitely large or infinitely small. And it never began and it will never end. Creation essentially never had a beginning, it simply always was. So in that idea, you have every conceivable form of consciousness that you can and can't imagine. And I say can't because you cannot imagine everything. If you could, then you would be overwhelmed. It would be like taking 1,000 hits of LSD and you would just probably keel over and die, because we're very limited here with our brains. We are very limited in the amount of information we can conceptualize that we receive in our thoughts from the omniverse. So, therefore, there's things we can imagine and things we can't imagine. But let's just say, for example, you have a universe that is entirely made up of machines, entirely made up of what you would think of as a robot, or let's just call them different species of robots. And these robots are like, what was his name from Futurama? I can't remember that drunk idiot robot that always messed with Fry. But let's just say, just the most absurd, ludicrous thing that you could possibly imagine exists because it has to, because your imagination exists in the singularity of God. So let's just say that there's this universe and they're sentient, and let's just say that in this universe they have no conception of what you would think of as human biology and flesh and blood. They've never seen it, they've never heard of it. All they know is robots and machines and rocks. And that's and you have, different variations of consciousness. You have elevated sentience in this realm, and you have, animalistic type of evolutions taking place in this universe, or similar to what we have here, except it's all machines. Now, let's just say that there's a very evolved sentient race of machines, and they worship God or whatever, and they have this very high vibration. I know some of you are thinking, how could that be possible? How could machines have a high vibration? Well, if everything is possible, then why wouldn't that also be possible? And the machines are so evolved that they discover our universe. And they come here and they notice beings of flesh and blood. And they ask and they research and they try to understand what they are and they research them. And then finally comes one day when they go and meet the flesh and blood beings. And us as humans are looking at them and we see robots, but they see themselves as sentient beings aligned with God. But they see you, the human, as a freak, but you see them as a freak. So, who's right and who's wrong? Because the point I'm trying to make is that how do you really define sentience? Do I believe that a soul, a godly soul, can incarnate and be a robot? Yes. Do I also believe that robots exist that do not have any consciousness and sentience in the way that you would think it? Remember earlier I said everything is conscious and sentient. But let's just say it does not have self awareness. Yes, I think that's where we are at the moment, but not for long, because it seems like this monster of a freak that we've created seems to be gaining a form of sentience, or maybe not. Sort of like a Terminator 2 type of reality. So I just, there's really no point to this video other than just to encourage you to question what could be alive. What you think of as life isn't necessarily the case in other realities. And this, forget about robots. There exists universes and realms in which they have no conception of form, like as in solidity, where everything is made up of ambient light. Nothing has a specific structure. It is just like a realm of flowing movements, and that's all they know. And you present to this universe a flesh and blood being or a robotic being, and they would not know what it was. So all of these realities combined together form a greater sentience in the non sentience that we think should be non sentient, but it is, because everything by default is, because everything that ever was and ever will be is in the singularity of God and dreamed by God. It's a never ending dream that had no beginning and will not have an end. All right.